So we will continue now. We have the great pleasure and honor of introducing Dr. Leah Mandler. She has her PhD in political sciences from the University of Haifa, Israel, and she will be talking to us, again, 15 minutes on epistemic communities and professional networks during crisis. Professor Mandler, please.
Thank you so much. I will just share the screen for a second. Okay. So, as you said, my field of expertise is international relations and political science. I don't usually work on businesses or corporations, so everything is what the lecture that we just heard is extremely interesting to me because we, me and my colleague Rosa Yanover, we have made this exercise in trying to apply research and understandings from international relations and political science into business and into professional networks. So for the last year, we had the opportunity to try and understand what is happening to professional networks, especially during the coronavirus crisis. So first of all, we need to understand that the purpose of the existence of professional networks, all of us, we have a lot of professional networks. Each of us is involved with colleagues and co-workers in various frameworks. And the main point of having a professional network is to use it at time of crisis, to use it for support and to draw resources and assistance from professional networks. We know from research that having a good relationship with their friends and with co-workers makes people feel much better at the time of work and also influences our creativity and our productivity. We also know that when people are not feeling well at their workplace, it also influences their professional performance and also their well-being. These understandings depend on the field that we are dealing with. So there are certain disciplines of work that are more influenced by the professional networks and the relationships with coworkers. For example, we know that in IT and telecommunications, almost 72% of people say that the quality of their work depends on how well they're related to other co-workers. And then other industries, for example, travel and transport, they really think that there are other important factors that influence their happiness at the workplace, but co-workers are not so important like in IT industry. But in general, we can say that when people are unhappy at their workplace, when they are not satisfied with relationships with other people, then also they're not only less productive, they also more often leave their workplace. And we can say that it influences every aspect of their work. Unfortunately, even before we had this COVID-19 crisis, many people around the world felt that they are not having their relationships at work satisfied. And we know that almost 1 in every 5 adults feel that they don't have even a single friend at work. And this is very important if we want to understand how the crisis is actually exacerbating these problems. So how are professional networks structured? How do they work? First of all, we know that there are 2 types of ties in professional networks, like in any other networks. We have strong ties and we have weak ties. And most of us have strong ties with our friends, with colleagues that we feel comfortable with working, that we communicate and work with every day. But we also, at the same time, have weak ties with colleagues that are around the world or with colleagues at our work that we do not communicate with every day, and we don't have with them such strong ties, but they are still part of our networks. And as you can see here on the drawing on the right side, the weak ties are actually what connect different networks one to the other. So if I have 5 friends at work, and one of them has a friend in another network, I potentially have connection with other networks outside my working place that I'm not using unless I understand this connection through my weak ties. And most of us actually do not use those weak ties. We do not know how to employ them. Sometimes we do use them when we are looking for a new job, or when we are looking for references, or we want an insight into how things are working in different workplaces. But in most cases, we do not use those weak ties, even though they make our own network stronger and bigger. So what is happening is that in our workplaces, we also use different communication patterns with those people that we feel comfortable and that we are used to working with. We speak directly. We know how to express our needs. We know to express how to express our decisions. But with those people that we have weak ties with, we usually put things more into context. They force us to explain ourselves more widely and also to develop different patterns of communication in order to reach them. For example, all of you know that if you're trying to connect someone from a distant network, you will have to define your goals, and you will have to write them in an email in a much formal way than when you're calling your colleague at the workplace. So it also develops us when we understand how to use those weak ties. Unfortunately, in most cases, we do not do that. Another thing that is important to keep in mind is that the way that we are gaining knowledge, using knowledge, and providing knowledge to other people is basically a social process. What does that mean? Is that whenever we acquire knowledge, like for example, at this beautiful Congress, it comes from other people. It comes from people who are working on the same subject or sometimes on completely different subjects, but we receive those informations and knowledge from others. And the main reason for that is that we don't have the time and we don't have the resources to understand everything that is happening in the world, and especially in the field that we are specializing in. So we don't have the knowledge in all areas that we would like to have expertise in, and we need other people to gain that information from them. Also, the decision making that we are doing is not done in a vacuum. We are influenced by all the people that we work with, and we have to have we do have some kind of internal compass, but we also gain influence on that internal compass from people that we collaborate with. So this is how we know who can be trusted, what kind of information can be believed, and we know how to use that information and employ it for the work that we are doing. So basically, all the ideas of what we consider good work, what we think should be done or should not be done in professional networks, this is where we learn all those things. When we collaborate with other people at our workplace or in different professional frameworks that we are included in. So what has been happening with our professional networks during this COVID crisis? We can safely say that the crisis has been the crisis of the professional networks, because mostly the connections and the relationships with people, especially with our weak ties, is happening at the workplace in a very informal settings. For example, we know from a real research that both our professional and personal networks have been shrinking during the COVID crisis, but we also know that not everybody has been influenced on the same level. For example, the research has found that more men than women have been influenced by this shrinking of our professional support networks. And this is mostly due to the networking style, but also women, although they have been able to maintain their professional networks, they are reporting difficulty in expressing themselves, in passing the message through during the online conversation, and they feel ignored and overlooked by their co-workers even more than they have felt before the COVID crisis. So besides this feeling of inadequacy and inability to pass the message through the means of communications that we are using during the COVID crisis, the Zoom and the internet and the remote working, We also see that people are missing their co-workers. They miss them not only during informal meetings at the workplace, but also in the afternoons, sometimes at evening, sometimes in different frameworks which are not professional, but they are related to the professional networks. Another thing that has been very important to notice is that there is a huge difference between how the employees and the employers perceive the problem, how they see what is going on in the professional network. We can see here in the research that was recently done by the IBM Institute of Business Value, that the employers think that they're really helping the employees get the skills that they need to work in a new way through the computers and from home, but the employees feel that much less. Also, the employees feel that they are not getting the support, the physical, the emotional, and the health support from their workplace, while the employers think that they are providing it in the best possible way. We also see that the same is happening with the clear guidance and expectations from how the organization is going to work, from how the plans are going to happen. And this gap is frustrating people in their workplaces, and they are unable to share it during a coffee break or during lunch break or just chatting with their coworkers at their workplace. So we see that the traditional sense in which networking has been happening in the workplace before in professional networks is not available anymore. And many people are feeling overwhelmed by this disability to use those professional networks in the same way that they have used them before. So why is this important? Because we see that this is not going to change for the better. We are going to work more and more through the internet. And we see that most of the employees understand that they will have to work remotely from home or from other frameworks. And we see that also all the demands and also the predictions are that this type of working will jump by 2030 by 30%. So if most of the companies are planning to do all those things and change the way that we are networking with our coworkers, how are the employees going to adapt? So the thing is that, as we mentioned before, we have these weak ties that we are not using them, and those especially are getting mostly influenced by the pandemic on one hand. On the other hand, we see that everything is getting very blurred because people who are not able to use those weak ties are really losing largely. We are connecting now with weak ties sometimes in different countries that before this opportunity that the COVID has brought into our lives, we couldn't use those networks as efficiently as we are using them now. So we have two types of interactions going on here. On one hand, we see that workers are feeling more isolated and that the virtual work is actually influencing all the informal and social aspects of work. But we also see that there is possibility to employ those weak ties in a different manner than we have done before, and we have to use this opportunity and understand how to do it. The main problem is that we are being left with only essential things in the professional networks. What does that mean? We are stripped of all the informal gatherings. We don't have the possibility to chat with co-workers and friends at work, and we have to concentrate on the main things, on the essence. The question is, what is this essence? How can people connect around the essence in the workplace when the fact that the project itself is usually not enough to be the essence that the network can be created around it. So what we thought is that there is a term of epistemic communities that exists in the research of political science and international relations for already a long time. It was coined by Peter Haas in 1992, and he actually wanted to discover how are new ideas and new knowledge introduced into political work and how are decision makers gaining this new knowledge? Where does this new knowledge come from? So he formulated the epistemic communities as a framework of professionals who work with other professionals in different countries, and they are capable of bringing new information and new ideas into the professional networks and through them to the decision makers. So the major power of the epistemic community is actually their expertise, their ability to bring information which is impartial. It is intended to be used by decision makers without any political considerations, without any bureaucratic restrictions. And basically, those communities are responsible for gaining and bringing knowledge of value to decision makers. So epistemic communities can be defined as entities, social psychological entities that create and justify knowledge, and they are capable of transferring that knowledge into the organizations, into the procedures, into the through the professional networks, into the level that needs to make the decisions. So there are four unifying characteristics that set apart the epistemic community from any other of professional networks. First of all is that epistemic communities have a shared set of normative and principled beliefs. And these beliefs are what the community is based on. These are actually the beliefs that the causal understandings are derived from, and they share practices in order to contribute to a deeper understanding of the set of the problems that they are dealing with. So from that basis, the epistemic community is capable of advising regarding a possible policy action or regarding the desired outcome. They also have a shared notion of validity and intersubjective understanding of what is true, what is untrue, and how do we weight data, and how do we decide that something is valid or not valid. Another important feature of epistemic community is a common policy enterprise, which means that they have to have a common goal, so some kind of set of problems that this community is trying to solve. And the most important thing is that the end goal of this community is something for the betterment of the society and not something for the betterment of the community itself. So this is the purpose why the community is created in the first place. So how do we import the idea of epistemic communities into professional networks? How do we enrich professional networks by the features that I have just described? First of all, we need to establish new type of networks. We need to establish topic-related networks which combine weak and strong ties together so we can employ the best of both. And we also need mixed level approach, which means that we have executive and employees in the same group, in the same epistemic community, working together. So basically, we are trying to suggest the establishment of multidisciplinary groups of experts on any given topic that the company or the country is trying to deal with. And they have to be based on two main and interconnected pillars. One of them is the provision, the gaining and the provision of information, and the other pillar is the pillar of connection. What does that mean? Is that we can combine professionals from different projects, different organizations, different firms, different countries, different cultures. And the more different they are, the better the community will be, given that it is also working according to all the principles that we have just talked about. So we are basically providing a solution that combines shared beliefs with certain conformity pressures of what needs to be done in order to solve a particular problem. So,
Professor Mandler, I'm sorry, we're running out of time. If you can maybe wrap up, that would be wonderful. Sorry.
I'll just run quickly. So the two pillars, as we said, one is epistemic, the other one is the one is the informational pillar, the other one is the connection pillar. The information pillar actually is based on the ability of such communities to dispute fake news, to provide valid and trustworthy information, which the professionals can use as their intellectual resource, and also provide this information all the time, keep it updated, keep it checked, and ready to use. And the connection pillar is based on the ability of these professional networks to provide the needs of collaboration, mentorship, and sponsorship that the people need when they are collaborating, so that we can provide the workers with the trust and mutual understanding that they are creating through shared experiences. So I'll just run quickly. We have the vertical frameworks and horizontal frameworks that enable us to do those things. We suggest working in working groups, which are topic groups of professionals that collaborate around a certain topic. And we also provide horizontal frameworks which provide peer support, because only peers can really understand what you are going through at your workplace, in your professional community. And they are able to give you the practical insights to see your successes and failures, and also provide you the hope and empathy that you need when you're collaborating with other people. And here is a very optimistic view of this approach. We see that the companies are actually doing this already. We have an enormous increase in partnerships, in ecosystems in business, in networks which are not from one industry, but from many industries. And the only thing that this requires is to reframe everything, adapt it in the correct way, and provide the professionals with the idea of performance that is based on trust and confidence between employees. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Mandler. Very well stated. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Nevertheless, we're happy that you were giving us that beautiful understanding of networks, business ecosystems, beautiful, especially in today's society, post-pandemic society.